You know how we all have that one friend we go to with all our financial questions? Well, meet Experian, your BFF, as in Big Financial Friend. Experian is going to be your go-to app when it comes to taking control of your finances. Experian could help you save, lets you check your FICO score, and so much more. Just download the Experian app today for free. Trust me, you need this big financial friend.
And we're live. Thanks for everyone for showing up. We're going to get started pretty quickly here. Hope everybody had an awesome day. And even if it wasn't awesome, it's okay. Hang out, chill, relax, do some art. Let everything that happened today just kind of fade with the sun. And if you're blessed with tomorrow, then start over. All right. So, when we last left off, let me cut this music down a bit. I don't know if y'all can hear that or not. My levels are showing that it should pick up a little bit. So last time we left off, we had worked on a little sculpture in ZBrush. This guy here. I ended up printing that thing out. Did pretty well. I ran into a few issues with some overhangs, but I can fix that, no problem. It now sits in our loft as some fancy decor. It's kind of fun to be able to just think of things and make them and set them around your house, give them away as gifts, whatever you want to do. Alright, so this time around what we're going to do is I'm going to get started on something that I'm intending to. The goal is to sculpt an eagle and eventually print this thing out and eventually have it cast in bronze. That'll be the end goal, but we're going to take some steps along the way to get there. So let me do some legwork here real quick before we get going too far. We'll go ahead and save this out. We'll call these live sessions. We'll call this episode 1. And I'm just trying to stay organized. And I'm trying to show you how I have to work. This is not the way that I would love to work. I'd love to just throw files everywhere. If you saw my desktop, you'd be appalled. But whenever it comes to actually doing production stuff, you've got to stay organized or you're going to be in some trouble. So I'm going to start this out It's just Eagle 1.0. Oh, dang it. I'm trying to load. We're going to save. My bad. Alright, episodes. Season 1, live. Alright. So, we're not going to get to sculpting just yet. We've got to figure out what we're going to make. And while I was sitting around trying to sort out what direction I want to go, I've been looking at some different styles of art over the past several days. You hear some noise down there. It's my little friend Rocky, my little Pomeranian. I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing? I don't have any food. I don't have food for you either. I've got all the dogs up here with me. Alright, so I compiled, or I like to go to Google, just kind of see what I can find, what inspires me. I really enjoy stylized sculptures. I've done a lot of different. Sculpture was never like on my radar, and but whenever I fell into it, I really enjoyed mostly just the process, and I like the study of anatomy. I like learning about things. I like learning about animals and their locomotion, how they move, and what makes them tick. And that's just fascinating to me. And whether or not, it's nice to finish a sculpture, but the journey along the way for me is really the treat for me. So there are a couple of artists that I've grown to enjoy over the past several years. I was first introduced to them whenever I started working at Deep in the Heart Art Foundry, whenever I was working there back around 2017. And there are a few artists that really stood out to me. The first one is Gene Toby. He passed away many years ago. He and his wife Rebecca developed this series of sculptures in this style, and I really, really enjoy it. And he's got a big version of this bear here out at Baylor University up in Waco. And it's just really fun. And I've heard stories about some of the ways that he developed these. I've heard that he would get little toys of animals sometimes and just dip them in wax just to build up material, and then he would shape it and carve on it and then arrive at whatever his sculptural conclusion was. It's really fun stuff. I like that they incorporate this sort of primitive art style onto something that's kind of, also stylized and I think it captures the spirit of the animal, and I think that's just really fun. There are tons of sculptures of deer and bears and lions and everything, and they're really well done, really well rendered. But it's really fun just to see something that just kind of captures like almost like an impression. It's kind of like an impressionistic sculpture. I don't know if that's what they would actually call it. This is more of like a contemporary, modern, representational art piece is how it would probably be classified. But the way I classify it is, I like it. It's cool. So we're going to be trying to develop something, not I like stylized, hard surfacey kind of things, but I want to capture the spirit of the animal or whatever it is that we're going to be working on. And so there's another artist named Rosetta. She's got a few sculptures. I know she has one out in University of Houston. One of these big cats. I want to say it's this one or one that's similar to it. She does a lot of cats. This one's really cool. I think this is on her website. Got a little fox. And there's also another gentleman named John Maisano. He's I think he's out of Austin. I think he lives in Austin. And he gets a lot of castings out here in Bastrop at the Art Foundry down at Pyrology, formerly known as Deep in the Heart. And what he does is he works small scale, and then he'll have it scanned. He'll make a little maquette, have it scanned, and he'll sort out like all of his most of the problems at a small scale, and then he will scale it up, and then keep going from there. I like this little fox of his. So some of the same themings, these themes tend to run through most of his sculptures. Very stylized, a lot of fun. If you're ever in Bastrop, Texas, it's about, I don't know, 20-30 minutes from Austin. You'll see some of these sculptures downtown. The Art Institute of Austin, the place that I graduated from, had moved to Bastrop before they closed. They had taken over a building downtown and some space in the art center, and then whenever they went bankrupt, they suddenly shut the doors, and well, they're gone. So it is what it is. So anyway, so those are some of the things that we're going to be. I'm not going to be aiming to copy this style, but I do like some of these things, and I'd been doing some of this stuff before I ever really wound up working at the foundry. So it's important to always kind of start out with, what are we going to be working with? Let's have a look at some anatomy. I like to see what other artists have kind of figured out through their studies. Obviously, you want to go to the source, like what is the actual anatomy of this particular bird. But I also think it's good to have a look at what other people have studied, because I might be able to read something on how they constructed this thing that'll help me to kind of break that down. I think that's really important. So what we're going to do is I'm going to spend a little time working in Sketchbook. I'm going to kind of just well, that's not what I wanted to do. Is that really necessary, dog? So I'm going to post these on here just to give myself something to have a look at. I love the angles. It's important to do this because, you know, we all have an idea of what something looks like, but until you actually sit down and like really study it, um, there are things you're not gonna pick up. Like I think I know what an eagle looks like because I've seen pictures of it all my life, right? But then whenever I really sit down to, if I were to go and try to draw it from memory, it's never gonna look like this. I won't. From all the iconography, the Americana, and everything in between, there are a lot of things I just wouldn't pick up on. I wouldn't pick up on these angles that this artist discovered or was able to capture in their quick little painting. And you know, even if I went and looked at, I have like a little eagle skull that I picked up from Sketchfab, and I would have never known the bone structure of how an eagle's skull um, looks like. The reason that their eyes look this way is because there's bone that basically just comes out right there. Um, so it's important to go through and really study these things. Let me grab a few more images. All right. All right. So for now, what we're mostly going to focus on is just the head. I think I'm going to try and get that locked down. And from there, I think the rest will kind of follow suit. So we'll start whenever it comes to the sculpture. I'm going to start by trying to capture the essence of the eagle and its look. And so we'll try and arrive at something that's, you know, kind of facing like this, but I also want to think about what I want to do down the line. And so the other things I want to think about are what would my full blown sculpture end up looking like. And my idea is I want to capture the a situation. That's a big freaking fish. Uh, for these are powerful birds, but I want to capture when like an eagle captures a fish. Um, so I might go and pull some footage just to watch the frames and see which one is the most dynamic. Like I have like three frames in my mind, like as the eagle's like swooping down with talons out into the water to grab the fish, and then I also have the idea of after it's grabbed the fish, making its ascent upwards, right? And so when we're thinking about sculpture, um, you know, you're thinking about how do I illustrate this idea in 3D and how is it going to be interesting in the round? Give me one moment. Okay. Sorry, I had a little dog wanting to get out of the room. So I'm going to merge all these down. Merge all. We're just going to take this and we're going to set all these off to the side. And we're going to just use this as a kind of an idea board, really. And I like Sketchbook because it's simple. There's other things. I have Procreate on my tablet, but obviously this is not my tablet. And so the first thing I want to do, I'm going to change this background. Let's change the background to something kind of like that. It's just easier on my eyes. And then we will add the layer, and we're just going to grab a pencil. Use kind of like a dark red. All right. So here at this point, I'm just trying to figure out, okay, well, what I basically use sketching as kind of some notes. So I know that I have this idea for an eagle to basically, I have this idea of this eagle with its little talons out, and say its wings are like kind of like this pose here, right? So he's got his face down, wings up, and you know, you got your little fishy here, and he's like, no. But basically, the way I need to think about, you know, if I'm making a sculpture, how is this going to be supported? How is it going to stand? So we would have some water some way here. I promise you, I went to art school. This is terrible. Just because you went to art school doesn't mean jack. So basically, I think what I would like to have is some, you know, there'd be some kind of water and an eagle and the fish. Now, that's cool, but what else could we do, right? So also have this idea of, you know, you still have your water. What if we made it a little more dynamic? So because what I'm thinking about is he's taking flight. And I would have to study the locomotion just to make sure that I understand, like, how all this actually works physically. But basically, you know, you got your bird, there's his tail, and at this point, he's got his fish, and that's all going to be captured here. And then you got your water, and then I would have to design it so that this is kind of makes kind of like a cantilever or a stand or something like that, um, so that it's stable once it's cast, because bronze is heavy. And even if it wasn't bronze, even if I just printed it in PLA or whatever, if I wanted to just have it as a plastic or cast it in resin, I still have to make sure that it's going to stand. These are all things that can be figured out along the way. So we've got these notes. My idea is that I think something like this, or even like something off to the side like this, with the like if he was like this and his wing was here, something like that. Legs out, and fishes not having a good day or something. So something to that effect. Yeah. Okay. And then, so that's kind of like the long-term goal here, right? Next thing I want to do is just kind of look at some of these situations, try to follow like what's going on here. You've got this oval shape. You got these angles, which are super interesting. So you got these angles. They're all following this center line, really. These big old orbits. And then there's this bony landmark right here that I definitely want to make sure that we take note of. Now, in the sculpture, I may or may not have the eyes represented like as eyes. It could be something much more stylized. But we do want to, like, there's a very distinct shape that's happening right here that I think is super fascinating. So you got this here. It's happening over here. And obviously some of this is poofy because he's got his head tilted backwards, right? But I think it would be super interesting to try and capture this. Okay. All right. So we've got our kind of mental notes. What else can we learn here? Yeah. So this little bony landmark right here is what I'm talking about. Is what gives them this right here. Okay. So let's play with this shape. So we got a little skull here. If we were going to stylize this, what could we come up with? Let's use this brush. Let's make some quick and dirty shapes. So if I didn't want to, I just wanted to do something super stylized here. If I take what I've learned here, there's this thing happening here. There's also this triangle that's happening here. So you've got kind of this maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but this kind of shape happening there. And then it kind of goes back up here. Okay. Yeah. So if you ever have like if you're ever trying to sculpt, an animal or something like that, it's always good to go grab something like this, do a quick paint over, quick draw over. Not saying this is the world's greatest example here, but so if we want to try and mimic this pose, then what would we be looking at inside of ZBrush? So we have, let's grab another color. Let's break this up. So we got kind of like a sphere. And this would be a little bit rectangular. But it would really be a little bit of a triangle happening there. Okay. So I think for now, I'm going to set this off to my other monitor. We'll kind of use that as a reference as we go forward. So we already have a sphere here. Let's go ahead and make sure the symmetry is on. And I'm going to go ahead and Dynamesh it real quick. It's pretty dense. So I'm just going to bring it down to 16. There we go. The reason I'm doing this is because probably bring it down to 8. There we go. I just want to get super simple shapes, and I want to establish it quickly, because if I don't, I will get myself bogged down faster than I can think in details, and we don't want to think about that right now. There's no point in focusing on details if the form and the silhouette and all the other stuff isn't figured out first. you will be wasting a lot of time. And trust me, if you had seen some of my older sculptures, they're terrible. Let's see. I'm going to go ahead and mirror and weld just to make sure I've got good center line. I've got my reference off to the side. I'm going to use a couple of brushes here. Basically just the move brush, and I'm going to be using this set from Shane Olson. He's got these insert multi-mesh brushes, and it's great for just getting geometry on there quickly, building out characters. In fact, I highly recommend checking out his channel because he goes through and he does little quick sculpts, quick builds and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and get a little shape going here right quick. Turn down the intensity on that smooth brush for sure. I'm trying to get some music going. The only thing that sucks is that this royalty-free stuff usually comes with a bunch of freaking YouTube ads. It's kind of annoying. So we'll try. It's like every single commercial decided to show up right now. I don't care, lady. Go away. Alright. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear much of any of this playing through. If it's terrible, tell me. Or if it's super loud, you can't stand it. Sorry. Okay. This is an interesting shape. So I want to get the landmarks in there pretty quickly. I'm going to use this appendage brush and establish that beak like really quick. So B and V. So before I start moving it around, let's use the gizmo and see what we can do. We'll use a bend curve, add a couple points. This will allow us to kind of work some of that out. That's like way too long, obviously. We're just going to go ahead and say okay, accept that. That's the one thing about using those. It would just have been faster for me to go through and use the move brush. So To each their own. Somehow my symmetry got turned off. So since that happened, I want to go ahead and make sure I mirror and weld. Just to make sure. And I'm going to use move topological to make sure that right now, just like I said, I want to get this stuff into place super quick. This is going to be stylized, so sometimes working quickly, not letting things be so precious, can really go a long way. It'll find its shape. You just got to stick with it. Okay. I want to make sure that I also establish that bony landmark. Now, I could do it by pulling this around, but I think the better way to go about it will probably be to add some other geometry. So if I know that my eye socket's going to be somewhere over here, I'm going to go ahead and recess this space here, and then we will add, we can try and add an appendage here. At a certain point, you just gotta grab a move brush and go. So we're gonna pull this here. Snake hook might be a good idea too. There's always this really rough stage you just gotta work through. see me moving around a lot, I'm just kind of looking at everything as a whole. Look at it upside down. Sometimes if you can't really figure out what to do, sometimes just get up, walk out of the room, go do something else, and come back, and sometimes you'll see things that just didn't stand out before. And even after I print this thing, I'm gonna see it and I'm gonna look at it and go, I really should have done this, that, or the other. But that's every single thing I work on. You only have so much time. Pour your heart into it. Have fun, and move on. There was a Disney animator named Glenn Keane. Did The Little Mermaid and a whole bunch of other. I think he did The Rescuers and a bunch of other animations for Disney. And he had there's some videos of him going around years ago. I think it was messing with like a VR sculpting or drawing thing, but you know, he talked about just drawing with sincerity. So if you take that approach with your work, I think that's what matters. Love what you do. Just try and enjoy it. And really try and enjoy the process if you can. Okay, so we got that. Let's try and get neck going. Now, when I'm sculpting, especially something like a bust, I'll stick with symmetry as long as I can, unless I'm taking some different approach. But typically what I'll do is I'll stick with like a straight on pose in symmetry, and then whenever I'm ready to actually pose it, I like to turn the sculpture. I like to turn it, you know, like 2 or 3/4, and you know, maybe angle the head, maybe angle upwards, something, or even angle it upwards and twist it. Give it something to look at instead of just like this dead-on stare. And I think I can. Let me see. Let's see if I have an example. Probably should have loaded these up earlier, but that's all right. ZBrush projects. turn off solo real quick. This isn't the best example. Like her head's a little bit tilted, a little bit turned. I think turning it even more would really go a lot further. I think I have a Batman. Kind of a similar situation, right? So I really could have pushed this much further. Probably. But you can see dead on, it's centered, but I turn everything around from there. I went through a phase a while back. I think I even have a Joker around here somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, his is a more... So if I, let's see, plug in... Subtool Master, Fill, Color Material. So the sculpt initially was all straight on, but then once I got to a certain point, then I started turning it. I got to a point where I just kind of stopped, I guess. I can always go back to it and fix some of this stuff that's not the greatest there, but you get the point. Turning the head, giving it some character really goes a long way. So we're going to be working on this eagle. I think I'll probably do it kind of like... Is it this one? No. So even this one here, I started out with the dead-on look, but then I add geometry just to add pieces and turn it, right? As you can see, I start a lot of projects. It is what it is. All right, so that's what we're going to end up doing with this guy. So for now, I'm just going to get this neck into place roughly, and then we'll go through and we will start to turn it at a certain point. So let's shape this out. Come on. Now, if ZBrush is ever going to crash on you, it's generally going to be whenever it's trying to save. This has been my experience over the years. I think that most sculptors would agree with me. So if you're ever working and it just starts to save, just hold your horses and then come back to it, because if you try and interrupt it while it's saving, you're almost guaranteeing that you're gonna crash. Let's see. See, I'm already trying to think about the pose. Like, is he going to be looking like that? Yeah? Or is he going to be looking like this? I don't think that's very interesting at this point. But this is how we would end up shaping things, right? Another thing we can do is kind of play around and turn off symmetry really quick. We could turn it like that. Maybe change it up. Make him look kind of inquisitive, maybe. And whatever pose you wind up with, push it. Like, I mean, really push that pose. I think that might be it. Trying to think of how I want it to sit. Yeah. Okay. There we go. That's where I'm going to land. Enough said. All right. So this is the angle that we're going to work with. Of course, right now it's going to look like this, but ideally what will happen is this will be my horizontal plane will be somewhere right here or right there. Okay. I'm also, before I do that, I'm going to let me take a step back to when we're here. And everything's still symmetrical. So what I'll do here is I'll split this out. So this way I can have one that just stays this way and I'll turn it off. And then I'll have another one to where I'm posing it. And so while we're thinking about it, let's go ahead and we'll go equal head. Just to try and stay organized. And we'll go ahead and create a folder. Add that to it. Come on, boy. There we go. Just in case. If I get down the road and I'm like, I want to try something different. I like to be able to have that flexibility. So on this one, make sure I've got symmetry on, and on this one, symmetry is off. Now that I've made all those changes, let's go ahead and save. Be kind to ourselves. So now we've got that. Let's try and get that pose again. Actually, I think I had it go in the other direction last time. Okay. So that, I think, will be good to go. Since this will be more of a bust, what we'll do here in a little bit is we'll start to kind of pinch out some of these shapes here. But I also want to make sure that I account for like we're gonna stop. This is gonna be so stylized, but we want to make sure that we account for the volume that the little feathers would make. And honestly, I should probably have some anatomical reference, muscular and everything like that. I know that there's musculature that's going to be running down this here. Okay. All right. Now that I've gone through and made these changes, I'm gonna duplicate this again just so that I have something to go back to. And from here, I'm going to do a Dynamesh. Do a Dynamesh, and I'm just gonna hit the whole thing with smooth. Get rid of that faceting. Now I'm going to use a clay tubes. Now, when you initially just load up the regular clay tubes, it's going to be a little choppy like this. There's nothing wrong with that. One thing I like to do is go into the stroke palette. Stock that over here real quick. And I'll turn on lazy mouse and I'll adjust the lazy step to 0.006, right? And I think that just gives me a little bit better, result. Then you can change the lazy radius down to something low. So I might even drop it down to like 3. And all I really want to do here is, well, I want to do a couple things. I want to establish some lines. So I've got a Damien standard. And I'm just holding Alt on the keyboard. And I'm going to get a big brush size. Now you saw I dropped the intensity down to 6, and I did that so it's not so freaking harsh, right? And what we're going to do essentially is establish this shape here, and then we will go back with our H polish, so BHP on the keyboard, and then we're going to stamp it back down. Ooh, that's a little bit rough. And I'm going to go back and forth with this until I have something that I find appealing. I want it to anatomically be an equal, but I want it to be appealing to me. It's going to be stylized for sure. So let's try and cut in here. See if we can establish that little line like I was talking about. And maybe even carve in a little bit. Now, if we really want hard edges, we could also come back later and do a retop. I'm not crazy about this shape though. So let's see. Let's go back to our reference. Kind of look. So let's go clay tubes, cut in a bit. Now, this geometry is a little bit dense, so we might want to cut it back a little bit, and that'll probably help us out. So instead of 120, why don't we try something like 82, or 80 is fine. And that will help us to control the surface a little bit better. That and cutting down the Z intensity will really go a long way. Some people just keep plugging away at it, and it's not that. Most of it's just that you've got to establish better control of your working environment, right? So I like this sweeping shape here. Build up some volume here. Kind of obliterated some of that there. So we could sit here and sculpt on it if we want to, or we can try and reestablish some control on this. And so how would we do that? We can take what we've got so far. This is, trust me, I will duplicate and I will duplicate and I will duplicate. And this is kind of my way of having save points. So what we'll do is we'll take this shape right here and we'll just Z-remesh it. Because it should capture the majority of the shape that we're looking for. And the reason why we'll do this is because by doing this, we'll get geometry that's a little more manageable. So I'm going to go and tell it I want to do half of this. Okay, much better. It's so much easier to work whenever you have lower levels of geometry or subdivision. Anyway, just using the H polish, trying to push down these shapes. at a certain point, things will start to stand out to me as lines that I want to either get rid of or accentuate. When you're working on your own artwork, don't worry about the freaking rules. Whoever said. Obviously, that doesn't mean don't take your stuff to somebody to, get an honest critique. But if you don't like what you're doing, don't expect other people to. So you've got to really enjoy the work that you do. Try to, as best as you can. And if you're fortunate enough to be able to do this as a living, cool. But that isn't the case for everybody. I don't know why I wound up in art in the first place. I've always drawn from as far back as I can remember. I think it's mostly just this compulsion to just make things. See, we got about 35 minutes left before I have to hop off of here, but we'll get as far as we can. Whoops. Sometimes I like to sculpt with polyframe on because it's sometimes easier for me to see how things are flowing. But that's also why I'll grab clay tubes brush just to kind of get volume and see where things are going. If you've ever sculpted clay, a lot of times what people do is they'll use a rake or a tool that's basically got teeth on it, so it creates little line marks on the surface, and that helps to be able to see where volume needs to be added or taken away. Okay, so I've gotten to a pretty good spot on this neck. Let's deal with the head. I'm going to go ahead and add something to represent the lower portion of the beak. gonna go ahead and solo this out a little bit. And that's what I was afraid of. I lost symmetry somewhere along the way. Okay. That'll fix it. Give him a underbite. Okay. Now I know that this should go back a bit, and so we'll figure that out. I want to separate out the beak. We'll call this eagle beak. Eagle head. All right. And that way we can work on each piece independently without having to worry about accidentally grabbing the wrong thing. Do we want to... Anytime I ever have to sit around and think about it, just try it. Like, if you're thinking about trying something, just freaking do it. The worst thing that might happen is that you have to hit Control Z. Big freaking deal. Grab that, smooth it out. Yeah, there we go. Make sure I got my reference. Okay. Now I know you can use Spotlight and everything to add reference and everything, but I really don't like doing that because it takes up real estate and I hate having stuff in my way. Super annoying. I do want to do something with this beak. offset the light. That might help a little bit. Okay. All right. So I don't know if I want to put eyeballs or not. So I think what I'm going to wind up doing is just have this the suggestion of eyes with just shadow. We'll see. So don't be afraid to get in there and just build up material. The worst thing that's going to happen is you have to cut it back. Right now we're just trying to establish some kind of planes. You can also use like a trim dynamic. It might help. I feel like that might be a little too harsh here. But then of course I'm going to grab a H polish that's harsh as it is. Now I want to add some material here. Basically, you want to square out that head. One way to do it might just be to grab it, move it. Maybe bring it back a little bit. Too much. Too much. Too much. just gotta try stuff, see if it works. Something else I can do is I could add a secondary piece of geometry just to see. But first, let's just work on here. Another thing you can do is just make mental notes. Use like Damien Standard just to kind of say, hey, here's what I'm trying to do. Something like that. Then I want to cut there. I know we're going to need to pull this backwards a little bit, right? So you got that happening. When you get stumped on an area, just move on to something else. They'll come to you. It's just sculpture. It's just art. Let it be what it's gonna be. Okay, that looks much better. So at a certain point, things start to get a little crunchy, right? So we'll go to Z Remesh, keep our groups. Let's aim for like a target poly count about 2,000. That'll give us some good stuff to work with. I'm gonna have it though Maybe even more. Much better. Okay. So now that I've made some of these changes here, I'm going to go ahead and do a Z remesh. Got our symmetry on. Let's aim for 10,000, see how it works out. Should pick up these bridges here. Even if it destroys it, it's okay. It's just a lot of back and forth, you know. You make some choices, make some changes, then bring it back, and just keep rinsing or repeating until you have something that you're happy with. Okay. I want to establish these shapes here. Okay. Definitely overdid it there. Trying to bring it back a little bit. Just got a few more minutes here. Start wrapping it up for today's session anyway. I think that's probably a good place to stop for now. So we'll go ahead and save. I think that once we figure out some of the other lines and shapes, it'll really start to pop. Sometimes I like to go through and look at change materials around, things like that, just to see what I might be missing. I like to turn on the mixer, give it an outline. Change the depth. That'll really help you to see things. Posterize it if you want. Good way to get a toony look a little bit. Anyway, so we'll go back to no posterize, no outline. And I think that's where we're going to leave it for tonight. Then once we have this all situated, I'll use this as kind of a base to launch for the full sculpture from. Okay. Then at some point we're going to print these and probably do a short run in bronze. And I'll post all the locations for all that stuff if anyone's interested. That'll be that. All right. Well, thanks everyone for hanging out. Hope you all have a wonderful evening and a great Friday wherever you're at. Tomorrow, God bless y'all. Sleep easy. Have a good night.